Hello everybody, welcome back to Two-Dimensional Design. This is tutorial number 2 and I want to start where we left off. Basically we were talking about line, shape, and form as elements of art, and we didn't talk about texture, value, and color, and I wanted to let you know that color will come in on project number 4 and we'll finish all through the rest of the semester with everything being in color. Value is going to be our second assignment, and we're dedicating an entire assignment just to value. Texture, we'll be talking about all through the semester. But today I want to focus on the principles: rhythm, balance, repetition, and scale. I want to show you how they relate to the elements. And I'll show you this. The best way to show you is by example. So let's take rhythm. I'm going to draw a 2x2 thumbnail. This is what I'd like you to do in your sketchbook. Basically 2x2, nobody's going to measure them. And this is a picture plane. So let's work within this. Let's create some rhythm. I'm going to use line. And I'm going to just make some wavy kind of lines in here. And let's see what we come up with. If we come up with any kind of motion within here, within the picture plane, you'll see that we have this interacting going up and moving through the picture plane. And that movement is rhythm. Rhythm is synonymous with movement. And the way I like to look at it, instead of just talking about it but plain movement and talk about it as rhythm, is basically it's the way the viewer's eye is going to look through the piece. And that is really the important thing. When you have that up on a wall or someone's viewing it, are they going to move through the piece? They're going to go continually through the whole thing, or are they going to stop somewhere? Because you have control of that. So this is movement, the way the viewer's eye moves through the piece. Of course, you can create rhythm with shape, which is another element, of course. I think you know that by now. So you could run shape all the way through to create that. You can do the same with value, form, texture, color, and you could combine them all together. As a matter of fact, rhythm, balance, repetition, and scale you're going to find in common, working together in unison in all the work that you do. Because remember that these are not rules in the arts. These are observations of how humans work and what they do when they're making art, especially on a two-dimensional surface. We get into three-dimensional, we add some other elements to it. But basically, this is your two-dimensional schedule here. So balance, let's talk a little bit about that. It's a little bit more complicated than this rhythm. We have symmetrical and asymmetrical balance. Now, this is a symmetrical use of line, very even, horizontal, vertical, very calming, very formal. Now, we're going to learn a new technique called mirroring you're going to use in your first project, and this is kind of an example of mirroring. If I have something I've drawn, I divide down the middle, I can mirror it, and it becomes this kind of formal sense of positive, negative, and a formal, balanced piece. And here we go. Take a look at that. You can see the formality of those two circles together, divided in half, and a positive, negative switch over. So this is formality and symmetry. There's also asymmetric. Now, asymmetric might not be what you think it is. It's not way out there in left field somewhere. Actually, there's a balance that is involved with asymmetrical, because it's called asymmetric balance. But instead of it mimicking completely, you may have a variation on one side, making it asymmetrical. But it still has a sense of balance. Don't forget that, because it's not so radical that it loses its sense of balance, but it will retain that. Similar like this, but they're different on both sides. It's not a complete mirroring. So that is how the asymmetric works with balance, but with line now, with shape. But if I use line, for instance, there could be a lot of variations of line that are asymmetrical, but still have that overwhelming feeling of formality and balance. And that's what you have to remember when you're working with line, shape, and form in this principle of balance. Remember also, when all of these elements and principles are working in unison, the balance of that makes the piece have unity, and balance creates that unity. Okay, so let's move on to repetition. Repetition is pretty simple. It's the repeating of shape or form or texture or value or anything like that. So we can do a lot with repetition. We can have things that repeat, for instance, but they vary at the same time, and then they create a bit of interest, but there's actually a sense of repetition going on there. Do you see it? And it doesn't have to be with shape, of course. Shape is the easiest one to demonstrate on, but it could be form also. Form can come and it can vary. It doesn't have to be all in a row. It can be mixed up. It could be repeated any way that you want to do that, to create that sense of repetition. Now, we're going to be dealing in our project with a thing called organic shape. Kind of looks like just made up out of your mind. And we're going to be doing a lot of repeating of organic shapes. Okay, so that's your project that's going to be coming up. I'm going to go into detail with that with you when we get that far. So let's talk about the last thing here. It's scale. Scale can be very dynamic in a work. Let's say we have that circle again, and we put a circle down, and we decided, well, we're going to change the scale. The scale is the change or the variation in shape, form, texture. So it's the variation of big and small. So if I put a little circle inside that circle, that's a variation of the circle. So you all, I'm certain, get that, but understanding the power of scale and the drama of scale as you get larger and larger with things, just when you think you got scale conquered, you can actually get massive in the use of scale. Does that make sense? And you go back and you can put details of scale in. So scale is something that you can create drama with by the size, and you can even bring it into your pieces and encompass other things that you've drawn into that scaled piece. Of course, you can have transparencies or solid shapes and forms and things of that nature. So there we have rhythm, balance, repetition, and scale. When we have our live meetings, I'm hoping that you ask me questions on this. I'd be happy to answer anything that you want. And of course, you can FaceTime me with this or email me with any questions you have. This is just a springboard to get you started on the projects. Okay, well, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next tutorial.